Estava eu há algum tempo atrás aqui no YouTube assistindo a um vídeo que a plataforma me recomendou do canal Genkimura, que eu nunca tinha pesquisado, nunca tinha ouvido falar. Enfim, afinal era uma recomendação do YouTube. E neste vídeo o rapaz, o gringo, o japo-americano, ou seja, japonês e americano, ele veio ao Brasil e com autorização da polícia de São Paulo, ele conseguiu uma permissão para gravar um dia da rotina dos policiais, desde que eles estão na base até o retorno, o descanso, o fim do trabalho, até onde, claro, eles permitiram postar e divulgar. Enfim, vi aquilo porque ele prometeu no começo que aquilo não era para glorificar policiais, nem mostrar lado ruim ou não, ia ser cru. O que ia aparecer ia ser cru, não ia ter comentário malicioso a favor nem contra. E é algo, obviamente, que você não encontra nesta mídia tradicional, a mídia mainstream, como diria esse termo, esse conceito. Então assisti até o final, apesar de que eu tenho um grande nojo da polícia ao redor do mundo. E qual é o problema disso tudo, Nicolas? Olha quanta coisa está acontecendo no mundo e você vem me falar de um youtuber. Calma. A coisa começa a entrar no âmbito do que denunciamos aqui. A mídia daqui, a mídia brasileira principalmente, começou a atacar esse youtuber dizendo que ele veio fazer um turismo de favela, que ele veio aqui para ficar de gracinha, que ele veio aqui, sei lá, para tirar sarro, e que os policiais que estavam junto com ele são malucos da cabeça, e que chegou no governador safado de São Paulo, o amiguinho dos maçons, o Tarcísio, o apoiador do terrorismo nas favelas a partir da polícia, a cadela do sistema do Estado, lá dentro das favelas, em que mataram um monte de inocente e aí coloca na mídia, na manchete, como troca de tiros, confronto, enfim. Só quem teve um parente morto sabe, né? Enfim, para alguns pode parecer exagero de um jovem e que talvez depois ele mude a consciência dele, mas é claro, né? Se não matou nenhuma da sua família, você não sente, né? Então beleza. E no que entra naquilo que nós denunciamos aqui, você vai ver o vídeo de 46 minutos que ele postou. Eu legendei para vocês. É claro que sempre tem um erro da legenda, porque algumas são automáticas, mas a maioria eu tento corrigir. Ele explicando e dando uma resposta à mídia aqui do Brasil, que distorceu realmente o vídeo dele. E o porquê isso está acontecendo. Ele dá exemplo também de outras mídias independentes. É claro, como ele não é um dito conspiracionista, muito entre aspas, é claro que ele vai colocar no vídeo pessoas de oposições controladas como o Julian Assange, o Joe Rogan, dizendo que a mídia está com ciúmes, uma inveja, e a parte melhor disso é que ele mostra a hipocrisia da mídia brasileira. Então, faça que nem o Messias disse para fazer. Analisai tudo e retenha o que é bom. Você sabe, quando ele apresentar esses personas aí, ele não está fazendo por mal. Afinal, ele acha que a mídia independente é totalmente fora da casinha ou do sistema. Não, também está dentro. E também ele vai apresentar alguns conhecidos, os porquinhos, eu chamo desse jeito aí, do sistema, que agora deveriam estar se ferrando, mas é Brasil, então não, né? Então não. Como o delegado da Cunha, que faziam vídeos fakes para dar visualizações e dizia que prendeu o número 1, o chefão do PCC, sendo que o cara lá que ele prendeu falava que era o chefão, não sei o que, não era nada, não tinha onde nem cair morto. Qualquer um que conheça minimamente o PCC lá na região de São Paulo sabe que ele estava mentindo. Enfim, não vou entrar no mérito agora. Então essa é só a introdução para você saber e não achar estranho quando aparecer esses personagens na tela. Você falar, mas o Nicolas não falou que são posições controladas. Como que ele tá me postando um vídeo de um rapaz valorando isto? Calma, não é o Nicolas que produziu o vídeo. Eu não fiz o roteiro do vídeo pro rapaz. Eu não entrei em contato com o rapaz dizendo, olha, é isso e aí depois ele fez o vídeo. Não, é totalmente diferente, independente. Tá certo? Então fica com o vídeo aí legendado, esteja ciente da situação e você verá que, por exemplo, a mídia de esquerda, já que não existe esquerda e direita, ele vai falar isso no vídeo. E tanto a esquerda e a direita, que traduziu aí automaticamente como certo, que right, direita, em inglês é right, e pode ser traduzido tanto como certo ou direita. Left, esquerda ou right, ou seja, esquerda ou direita, mas ele traduziu como certo. Mas quando ele falar isso, você crave bem, direita, esquerda estão ambas erradas. Ele fala isso e concorda, então por isso que ganhou mais um ponto para aparecer aqui no canal. Mas uma coisa interessante que eu também quero que você preste atenção quando aparecer é que ele vai mostrar que a mídia, e vai falar que se tornou isso, mas desde que ela foi criada ela era desse jeito. Mas enfim, esse não é o detalhe. É que a ditas mídias de esquerda, por exemplo, a G1 da vida, que é a Globo, vai dizer uma narrativa. E aí, aquela dita bolsonarista, não pode liberar isso, liberar aquilo, isso mesmo, presidente, literalmente falam isso de boca cheia, bolsonarista a favor dos valores conservadores, blá blá blá, e toda essa patifaria copiada dos americanos, que a gente é uma cópia mal feita dos americanos. Essa é a realidade, é só você parar pra pensar. Elas também estão repetindo a mesma narrativa, ou seja, você vê que é mais do mesmo. Eles fingem ser isso, pode ser que até que um jornalista são ou bolsonarista ou sei lá o que, e as outras fingem que é Lula, ou algumas são mesmo realmente lulistas, vamos dizer assim. Mas você sabe que o bojo do sistema engloba qualquer porcaria, ou seja, tanto um contra o outro. É um engodo, é uma mentira. Você assistindo um achando que vai ter uma realidade diferente, e o outro que diz que está sendo perseguida, que mostra o que é, se todas as outras não mostram, também é amiguinha do sistema. Então nenhuma solução há para essa grande mídia a não ser o fim dela. E é claro que alguns deles vão para a internet, como já estão sendo postados alguns programas, mas fakeando, ou seja, falsificando vídeos, falsificando relatos e quem sabe pagando alguns para participar dos vídeos que eles dizem que não são combinados. Bom, você vai entender mais ao decorrer do vídeo. E desculpe por falar muito, mas foi muito necessário essa introdução aqui para você saber o que vai estar assistindo.
So that's me on every mainstream media outlet in Brazil 3 weeks after I became the most controversial man by uploading this video. In this video, now with 3 million views, I spent 24 hours with a military police unit that patrols favelas in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And what was supposed to be a video intended to neither expose nor glorify the cops became a major controversy involving the media, politics, and ethics. And in this video, I'll explain you exactly what happened. I also talked with Tyler Oliveira and Tommy G to talk about the future of mainstream media versus independent journalism. And by the end, I'll expose the media's hypocrisies and provide my side and share with you how this whole experience made me rethink the future of this channel. So let's get to what happened in Brazil. The controversy began around 2 to 3 weeks after it was posted, and it was sitting at around 1.5 million views. So look, in this video, I'm not gonna address each and every single one of the accusation and lies that the media engaged in, and it's out of respect for those that were involved and to avoid reigniting more controversies around this topic. On June 24, 2024, I received an email from a major Brazilian outlet in which they were asking for information, several questions regarding the video, and at the end, they gave me a deadline of around 3 hours after I received the email for me to respond. So it was towards the end of my workday, so I wasn't really thinking much, so I decided to provide a couple statements and also ask some clarifying questions because the questions that they sent were quite vague. But after I sent it a few minutes later, I decided to send another email telling them to please retract these statements because ultimately I realized that this was going to be a hit piece. And to be honest, I didn't think much of it. But then the next day is when it all started because the same outlet that reached out, you guessed it, wrote a hit piece on Instagram and on their website. And after that was like a snowball. Every major mainstream outlet in Brazil began writing about the same thing, and it was like a coordinated attack.
Youtuber americano.
Youtuber gringo. Youtuber americano.
Youtuber americano.
Veio ao Brasil para fazer o chamado...
Que veio ao Brasil para fazer o chamado turismo de favela.
Turismo de favela.
Tá participando ali de algumas ocorrências, ele vai sentado no meio da via polícia militar.
Tá num carro da polícia militar.
Mas vai pra rave pra prender droga, Wilson. É a polícia militar.
Não, mais uma rave,
So to quickly summarize the multiple reports, they called the video shocking and criticized everyone from myself to the police force for allowing a civilian to record without proper authorization. Some outlets even made it a point that no professional journalist would have ever thought to get inside a police car and let alone allow a citizen to use military operations inside the car and at the station, which as I will show, none of that is true. Some outlets call me a liar and a scoundrel for calling Brazil the deadliest country in the world.
É tudo dentro do carro da polícia. O que parecia ser uma coisa interessante e bacana.
But if you look at the statistics seen here, in terms of total homicide counts, Brazil does have the highest number. And what I want to make clear is that I had absolutely zero intention of portraying Brazil in a bad way. But unfortunately, the violent crime statistics are still true. But it is important to know, and I probably should have, that number has undeniably gone down every single year from 47,000 in 2020 to now 40,000 in 2022, which is a significant improvement. But anyways, over the next week since that initial email that was sent to me, it was a constant barrage. Article after article, they started digging into my personal life, from where I went to school to what I used to do for work. And they even started talking about my channel and the types of videos that I make because, look, narrative was out and they had to find things to support it. And just when I thought that things were gonna die down, things started to escalate until it got bigger and bigger, where it eventually even reached the Sao Paulo governor. And again, what was supposed to be a video in which case I showcased the realities, the human side, the risks that they undertake, and was filmed with the approval that we thought that we needed to get, was quickly swept up in media outrage that led to severe consequences for those involved. So that's a short of it, and I'll get deeper into what was reported throughout the video. But first, I wanted to ask some of my peers if they've had any similar attacks in their own works.
My name's Tyler Oliveira. I make YouTube videos. Our goal is simply to educate, inform, and entertain, and hopefully do all three at once. I started off doing goofy stuff on YouTube, got a little bit older. The stuff became a little bit ridiculous.
Many even like articles have been written about you, right?
I think the biggest moment that made like the mainstream was, and a guy was having an active overdose, we learned in real time on the sidewalk. I think we got like a Vice article, ironically, and it seems like acknowledging the reality that is his situation in real time has some value to the broader public in remedying what is going on and helping this individual. And at the very least, to turn a blind eye and pan away from that situation would be an extremely inaccurate portrayal of reality.
My name is Tommy G. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I think where our channel shines is really diving into the underworld. A lot of times news talks to the victims of things, or they talk to people that witness something, but I talk to the people that do a lot of the things in the world that are illegal or a little bit shady.
You said that you grew up in like Crystal Lake, Illinois, which you described as the most white bread suburban Applebee-ass like suburb that you can grow up in. How are you so, good with connecting with anyone from any sort of backgrounds, whether it be pimps, prostitutes, gangsters, migrants, to even redneck?
I think something about me that's just always been within me since I've been a kid is I can be the guy that if I'm taking the train to Chicago, I sit next to somebody, I can have a conversation with them the whole way there. And I just have always been fascinated by people, good at asking questions, and that's always just been within me.
And I think what's becoming clear is that we're living in a post-trust age, where more than ever people don't trust the government, our healthcare, the food we eat, and especially our media.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. No, I know. CNN makes I know.
Was that supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
And I guess it's good for me because now people are starting to trust people like myself more for the truth.
Now, the thing that a lot of traditional journalists don't like, they don't like being put on the same platform as the average citizen and let the people choose the narrative and let the people determine the truth, and not 5 editors-in-chiefs of major publications.
And the more people are picking up their camera to document what's happening, instead of relying on some traditional media outlet to do so, the more it's exposing how much the mainstream has failed to do their job. And it's why by the end of the video, I'll be announcing something exciting that I've been building to address this problem. And I noticed this especially in the recent assassination attempt. Like many of you in my audience, when it first happened, I heard and learned everything surrounding it through Twitter or X. And I'm glad I did, because while people were scrambling to find the truth of an undeniable historical American moment, the mainstream was more focused on creating a narrative. So to be fair, maybe they were actually waiting on the facts before making a determination. But then again, when have they ever shown that level of concern for other breaking stories? And it's exactly why I decided to make this video, to provide my side, instead of staying silent as the media's attacked me, as well as the people involved. Just because we strive to explore both sides doesn't mean that we're pushover pussies that don't stand for anything. Because one of our values is honesty, and that means that I'll expose those who do the opposite, who lie. But I'm saying this now, but I've realized through this experience that pursuing truth does come at a cost. And so it's questions that I've even asked myself making this video, this response. Is this even a road that I want to continue going towards? You'll know what I concluded by the end, but now let's get back to the story. It's not continuing with the story. What I began to see quickly in real time was the mainstream media snowball in creating narratives. And I think it's one of the biggest problems with mainstream media today, because after the initial article, one outlet after another began using the same out of context clips to paint this and continue this narrative. Yep, so that's me in a police car chase in the most deadliest country on earth. And as you can imagine, people who saw this clip only on Instagram, didn't watch the full video, they started blasting me in the comments. And it was one after another. And to an extent, I can actually see where they're coming from. I get it. Because as a Japanese American who wasn't born or raised in Brazil, I'm not going to be able to fully understand the intricacies of the favela police situation. And ultimately capturing the realities and nuances of social, economic, and cultural realities, especially of a country that I'm not from, is obviously always going to be a challenge. And look, I can honestly hang my head and say that, look, I try my best to provide an unbiased approach. And let me be clear, we got the authorization to do this, or we thought. And even though I did my best to give this unbiased approach to this issue, I can understand the narrative of what these clips make it out to seem. An American YouTuber that came down to play cop for a day, recorded as this culturally enriching experience, posted to my American viewers, and then go back home to Austin. But with that said, what I saw is that once a narrative is created, anything that supports that is included, and anything that isn't is conveniently left out. You can see that when they started digging into my personal life, from what I used to do for work or where I went to college. Southern Cross University. See, they couldn't even get that shit right. It's Santa Clara. Look it up. And then they started to selectively select and mention the other videos that I've done, from trans athletes to topics on racism, feminism, to paint me as like this problematic, controversial person, where if you actually watch the full video, I don't know if anyone can come to that conclusion. And look, they're doing this and trying to find this evidence that I'm this irresponsible, disrespectful person and as like this villain, while completely ignoring their own hypocrisies, which I'll get to in just a minute. And it was like every hour and day that passed, the situation was escalating. And as I mentioned, as it reached the Sao Paulo governor, this then led to the investigation and the removal of the police officers that were involved with me in the video. And look, that's when things got scary, man, and devastating. That, let's be honest, simply they were following orders, as all of us thought that we had the necessary approvals that were needed for this filming to take place. But as I'll get into later on in the video, even though these similar ride-alongs have been done countless times by the same Brazilian media outlets that are criticizing me and the police, there is a much deeper layer to why this became such a major controversy.
A lot of the media right now is weird. Like, you have these people reading words that they didn't even write in a voice that no one talks in outside of a newscaster voice. Like, it just, there's so much that just feels unnatural about it. On YouTube, CNN put out a little hit piece about me and my friend Brandon Buckingham for how we covered Kensington, Philadelphia, saying that we were exploiting people by talking to willing and consenting adults that are willing to share their story and that we're connecting with and talking to. When we do that, it's exploitation. But they literally copied our same video, only shittier and more boring. And thankfully, due to the revolutions of the internet with YouTube and podcasting and all the Substacks and all the independent channels, independents are rising and independents are winning. And we're actually wiping the floor with the mainstream.
Because truth is, I'm not even the first American YouTuber to where this happened.
YouTuber, esse rapaz. Foi youtuber libanês.
34 anos, passei nada, né? Bom, então você acha que você tem tantos contatos bons? Vamos aqui levar a gente lá em cima pra polícia, né? A polícia, a gente vai subir com você, já que você conhece a turma, porque de uma certa forma ele tá lá.
In his video, he actually did the opposite, spending a day with gang leaders in the favelas, and surprise, surprise, the Brazilian media wasn't happy about that at all. And look, I'm gonna be fair here. They're not wrong when they mention how what he and I did, even though on opposite ends, can be dangerous. But again, let's be real. Is our safety what they really even care about? Because if they got the same level of access that we were able to get, let's be honest, they would have absolutely jumped on it. And they have. And they do. And so the question is the controversy around what realities were shown, or is the controversy around the messenger that's doing it? Because at the end of the day, as YouTubers, we're also playing the exact same game as the mainstream. We're also in that same business for views and attention, whether that's for more money or to stay relevant. And when that chase for views and relevancy means making bigger and better videos in order to do so, if we're not careful, this can push us to explore more dangerous places and situations, sometimes in different countries. But without the resources and safety teams that mainstream media has the budget to allocate, what can this lead to? Because just a few months ago, Arab was literally kidnapped in Haiti when he traveled there when gang members took over the country and there was political turmoil. And so I wanted to ask his ass for an interview to ask about it, but he told me he doesn't do virtual interviews. So I get it, bro, egoing me and shit. Nah, I'm kidding. It's all love. Before we get back into further in the story, I did want to hear what Tyler and Tommy thought, because they've definitely pushed some boundaries with their videos. And if that's also something that they've thought about.
We were in Jamaica. I had difficulty ascertaining whether or not this guy was actually trying to kill us. And it turns out the guy had a knife, had the taser. He was down to clown and he was trying to position himself to mug us. Once you're in, you're filming out there, it's tough to realize the risk level of some of the situations you're in. Like, that was the moment. It was our near mugging and it was Arab getting kidnapped. I was like, what are we doing? These are guys in their 20s about to get murked for a YouTube
that was
video?
like a wake-up call for me too. I think for a lot of people.
Tell me about it.
A story we were just with kids on Pine Ridge, and we gave one of the kids a ride home. We found out 2 days later that kid was stabbed in the neck and the body like 8 or 9 times and lost a lot of blood, and he's going to survive. But
damn.
But here's the thing, right? It's all cool and dandy. People risk their lives doing a variety of professions. You got war journalists, war photographers out there. It's cool. But what's sad is like your mom loses 20 years on her life because you got murked. I think YouTube and sensational media in general, and the fact that everyone's one-upping themselves in low-hanging fruit ways, in the sense of what's the craziest situation you can insert yourself into? Views. But in reality, I think where a lot of the gold is, and where a lot of people will start thinking more of, is people, not just guns.
And look, you won't meet a bigger hater of mainstream media than me, but if we're gonna keep it real, there's clearly pros and cons to this shift in the media landscape. Because let's say journalism continues to become more decentralized, where now everyone's a journalist. You also have to consider that there will now be increased risk that journalistic integrity and factual reporting is also going to become less common. And some of y'all might say that that's already happening today, but come on, let's be real here. And look, this is coming from someone who thinks mainstream media is becoming a joke. And as mentioned, I'll be revealing what I've been working on to be able to address this right at the end of the video. Because like I said earlier, in that we're all in the same business for these views and attention, you also have to realize that these big mainstream media outlets that we all know also didn't start with the intention to become a mouthpiece for the government or big corporations till the environment forced them into it. Because the environment around the world where advertisers can allegedly band together to boycott certain companies, and if they don't promote the messages that they want them to promote, well, now you can see how this controls what gets reported and what gets not. But as I've been telling y'all, what's encouraging is that people are starting to fight back.
I was shocked by the evidence uncovered by the House Judiciary Committee that a group of companies organized a systematic illegal boycott against X.
Just this month, X sued the World Federation of Advertisers and its member companies and accused them of violating antitrust laws. And just days after the lawsuit was submitted, the World Federation of Advertisers confirmed that it will now be discontinuing its Global Alliance for Responsible Media initiative, as the lawsuit, quote unquote, caused a distraction and significantly drained its resources and finances. So call that an admission of guilt, who knows? But just recently, Joe Rogan, who has the biggest podcast in the world, has also taken legal action against mainstream media, and he's had a fair share of run-ins.
The rest of them are all lying about me taking horse medication. And we should talk about that.
That bothered you.
It should bother you too. They're lying at your network about people taking human drugs versus drugs for veterinary.
Calling it a horse dewormer is not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake.
Because now he's allegedly suing MSNBC $30 million for stitching up clips from his podcast to make it seem like he's in support of Kamala Harris, even though the actual footage shows that he was saying the complete opposite.
Everybody forever was like, Kamala Harris is the worst vice president. She's the least popular vice president of all time. And then in a moment, all of a sudden, she's our solution. She's our hero. It's not real democracy. It's controlled parties. She's going to win.
No, she's not.
She can win. She is a strong woman. She is a person who served overseas twice. She in a medical unit. So she was a congresswoman for 8 years.
Yeah.
She is a person of color. She's everything you want.
So now you can start seeing how for years, mainstream media has been taking out of context clips and painting a narrative to influence millions to think a certain way. And it's exactly why people are starting to wake up and realizing that these mainstream media platforms are losing its credibility. While someone like Joe Rogan is arguably the largest media figure in the world today. We're starting to see this even from like the most mainstream of hosts. And so what this shows is that more and more people would rather trust someone that they can have a connection and has a face behind it. Whether that's myself, Channel 5, Arab, Nick Shirley, or these two guys, rather than a network without a face that has gotten away with the same lies they accuse us of. So back to the story and the question of, is the outrage over what was shown in terms of content, or is it about the messenger? Because if we're gonna ask that, we also have to ask, is the mainstream media the right messenger themselves? Because let's say someone starts criticizing you for the exact same things that they do. Would you listen to them? Would they have any credibility to talk? Like, look here, I wish I was kidding. This is Record, and they're a big mainstream media outlet, and they even have a dedicated show called, and I'm sorry if I butcher this, Cidade Alerta, where they show journalists riding with cops and joining them in raids. But then they criticize the police for allowing a YouTuber to take a part in a police chase inside their vehicle, and they were the ones that I showed earlier that called me a liar and a scoundrel. I can't make this up, because there's another outlet called Band that literally has a dedicated show called Línea de Combate, where they have weapons in the car and also has a cinematographer reporter follow along when they do these police ride-alongs. But since I seriously doubt that they watched the full video, they accuse me of engaging in slum tourism.
Turismo de favela.
Ignoring the first half of the video where I'm literally spending time with the police, seeing their routines and what they do before they go on patrol. So look, I completely get it too, in which this could be seen as slum tourism. I'm mindful of that. But if they do the exact same things, are they engaging in slum tourism too? Let's be consistent. And look, I can go on and on, but this isn't the only one. SBT News shows a video of a journalist here caught in a crossfire in a favela in Rio as he's ducking behind a car waiting for these bullets to go by. But then they criticize me that professional journalists would never think about entering a police vehicle and ride along in the police like I did, and called my video a shocking episode. And look, I don't even need to say anything, because the good thing is the people in the comments are calling them out already in their hypocrisies. But look, I'm also going to give credit when credit is due, because there were also some outlets that recognized that this could be hypocritical and were more objective. Reddit TV is a smaller outlet, but has one of the most famous police ride-along shows called Operação de Risco that show raw footage which do very similar ride-alongs like I did. And in their articles, they focus more so on reporting on the facts surrounding the event, the consequences that happen, instead of blasting me like the other outlets did and digging into my personal life. But I think the most interesting of them all is seeing how other Brazilian independent creators seem to react to the mainstream reports. Look, this is one example, and to be fair, one that did speak favorably. His name is Fala Glauber, and who has a popular podcast about police and crime with around 2.6 million subscribers. And this is him reacting to a report that this mainstream outlet by the name of Jovem Pam did.
Vamos lá. O que eu acho do vídeo aí? Eu acho que tem um exagero, né? Por que tanta crítica? Porque querer condenar os caras. Vejo mais uma narrativa aí forte para pegar e manchar a imagem da polícia.
And sorry if I'm f***ing these names up. So Jovem Pam starts off the report accusing me that as a civilian, I was handling and using a weapon inside the police car. And if you watch the full video, that's obviously bullshit. Because just like how when Glauber started watching and reacting it to himself, anyone can tell that this weapon wasn't in my hand, but more so securely attached to this holster that's inside the middle seat of the police car. And they weren't the only mainstream outlets to run with that lie. In fact, that was one of the biggest accusations that they had against me and the police. And that's exactly why they use these frames in which you can see showing a hand on a gun, but it was only when the car was swerving around and I needed something to hold on to inadvertently or consciously so I can maintain my balance. I was not using weapons inside of the car. Then after that, Jovem Pam went on to criticize the police, claiming that they aren't serious, they should be discredited, and investigating some irresponsible YouTuber like me in their vehicle. And Glauber argued that if that's their stance, they should probably explain to the audience what supposed crime was committed during this video. And one thing that I've also found is that Jovem Pam is actually a more conservative outlet. Let's say it's like the Fox News of Brazil. And it's exactly why I say that it doesn't matter what side mainstream media is on, left or right, both sides clearly lie. But like I said, and hopefully I'm showing this, is that what I respect about Glauber was that he was also fair and objective and criticized me in an objective way, because that's fair. Even though my vest was different from the officers you can see in the video, I could have worn like a different, jacket, like a press vest, especially to avoid danger or cause confusion amongst the public. That's a fair point. And one thing that I also respected about him is that unlike all these mainstream outlets that did 5-10 minute segments on me, what he actually did is went to go see the video himself after reacting to his report. And his conclusion was this, that the mainstream press is pissed. Pissed because despite doing this kind of content themselves, I received a level of authorization and access that they could never get. And then he went on to say that the media used this video to fuel a broader narrative aimed at damaging the police's reputation. And that if they feel so strongly about this, they should also stop producing similar content in which they have been for the last 20 to 30 years.
Entra na favela, pô. E muitas das vezes entra com a polícia. E você assiste isso há 20, 30 anos, pô. Entendeu?
I mean, bro said it way better than I could. And one last thing before I move on, I do want to also address how these outlets have painted me as this foreign YouTuber who also just acted on my own, went to a police station, asked if I could do it to then start filming. No. Do you really think any police station in any country will just say yes if I just ask to join in? Like I even mentioned in that video itself, I also filmed with the civil, scientific, and obviously the military police, and that was only possible because we got the proper approvals and permissions beforehand. And really, really think about this. If I truly was this bad actor, do you really think any of them would have given the permissions and approvals and their valuable time and energy to provide me the realities of what they do on a day-to-day basis? And really think about that. Would they have given me that access that the mainstream media is desperate and hating on me for getting? So honestly, let me know in the comments what you think if you're watching. We're currently going to hold off on releasing that video because of this whole situation. And I also really want to be respectful to these division and avoid giving any more fuel to the media. And I also want to say this, that I want to make this abundantly clear. Man, I love and respect the hell out of the culture and country of Brazil. And look, if you guys are willing, I would love to make more videos in Brazil. So let me know. But anyways, point is, it's clear that mainstream media has every advantage to me when it comes to connections, productions, logistics, resources. But the most important thing that they do not have is the people's trust. And like I keep saying, I'm not the only goddamn one. Because other Brazilian YouTubers have also taken into their own hands to show the realities. Like Elias Jr. and Delegado de Cunha. Again, sorry if I fucked up your name. But before I reveal the final part of the story and what I think about all this, I first wanted to ask about this growing market of people who are sick of this mainstream and the bullshit.
I've always had a natural curiosity, and I could kind of connect with anyone in that way. Yeah. But I think a big part of that, though, is also being genuine, because I think people can always tell if you're not being genuine. People just have a keen sense of being able to sniff that out.
Yeah.
Well, how about you? Do you feel like, natural curiosity and being genuine is just a natural gift? And if so, do you think that's a requirement to being a good journalist? And can anyone develop that, or is that something that you're kind of born with?
I think it makes, especially for what I do, you need a high degree of trust and credibility. So because now I have a portfolio of different videos where it's I talk to the smuggler, I talk to this dealer, I talk to this, I can tell the Latin King leader, hey, you can trust me. I'm going to blur you out properly if you need it. I'm going to alter your voice. I have a history now where people from all sorts of backgrounds and different sort of things that I protected and took care of. So I do think being genuine is important, but I don't think it's necessarily a requirement, because there's plenty of journalists out there that I think, they might be nice to you on the phone. I've had this happen to myself. They might be nice to you on the phone. Oh, your story was interesting. We want to talk to you. Then their first question out of the gate is some they try and pin you into a corner. And I do think that the world is getting tired of that type of journalism. And I think if you are honest, if you are genuine, and if you are just genuinely curious, I think the door is open. And so I think I've stepped into a lane that whoever the previous media establishment left wide open.
I think I agree with that. I think so many people are very sick of like kind of biased journalism where you're already going in with like an agenda, right? It's like you're kind of just already being told like what to think about a person instead of like, look, here, I'm going to present this person honestly, and then you get to make a decision about what you think about it. So then how do you see like the future of journalism playing out? Like, do you think it's going to be a collection of independent journalists like you and I that will completely replace mainstream media through like a collection of what, you know, like they call it the citizen journalists? Do you think that's the future?
I certainly think it is. I think that it's going to be between people like us going boots on the ground and then people that are, you know, the reaction channels, the podcasters, the video essay types that just do it from their office and write really good pieces. But I think that's going to be the smattering or the smorgasbord of independence, and people will just gravitate towards the people that they identify with, that they like. Maybe they share the same common views with them. And if there was a stock called independent journalism, I would bet on that in my mutual fund, and I think we would do very well.
And so before I get into the final part of the story, I do want to also quickly share what I was going through while this was all going down. Because man, seeing your goddamn face everywhere, from videos to articles in a completely different country, it sucks. And you know how they say like negativity is like this addictive drug? I was literally taking the Portuguese articles, putting it into Google Translate so I can understand the type of shit that they're talking about to me. And look, I didn't really tell many people about this, but it really made me reevaluate my mission. Because is this the type of future that I want to keep going down the bigger that I get? Because I always knew that this pursuit of truth was never going to be easy, but you don't really realize it until you start seeing hit pieces about you, and that it definitely doesn't come without its sacrifice. But to be honest, all of that was nothing compared to the pain of seeing how the media outrage led to the removal of the officers involved from their duties. Officers who were simply following authorization to show me a day in their life and their realities. That was the toughest part, because I also felt helpless. And not only did I think about deleting the video, and ultimately I think it got to a point where doing that would have caused more damage than good, but I also seriously considered quitting the channel. Because was I even really cut out to do this? Do I want to do this? Because even companies like Vice, that were once considered the gold standard of investigative journalism, in the future of digital media, have become what they originally sought out to destroy. And in 2023, they even filed for bankruptcy. This is after going from investigating North Korea with Dennis Rodman and the Harlem Globetrotters to now 25 ways your dog is transphobic. And so, is it even realistic that with all this pain, but also the consequences that I've also caused through this video, do I even want to build the next Vice or the next big middle ground media company? Because is it worth all the media attacks and negativity?
You know, we talked about how negative news might like impact you. Do you think doing this has also made it harder to look at like the subjects that we cover as humans, especially when we're balancing things like content and views? Like, how have you been able to balance the search for content and also being truly empathetic?
I think actually with this job, with these videos I've been a part of, it's become easier to understand where someone is coming from. For instance, before we filmed these videos with homeless people, I did not think every homeless person I saw on the street had this full-length story of all these traumatic events and inciting incidents where they ended up on the streets. And a lot of these people are chill. I think at the end of the day, doing these types of videos, doing this journalism, documentary work, YouTube videos, whatever you want to call it, you'll learn that everyone is a human and everyone has a story. There is no black and white. There's no moral black and white. Everything really is gray.
So I think there's two different types of creators. There's creators that are human first, going for the story, and there's creators that are content driven. To me, it's always about the story. So, and the people behind it. So I've never gone to a city and been like, bro, this is going to be good content. It's, okay, who are the different characters in the story that are going to, like, for instance, if we're going to talk about alcohol bootlegging on Pine Ridge, I want to talk to an AA meeting. I want to talk to an alcohol bootlegger. I just want to get all the people in the story. And the other thing, like the clicks, the views, like to me, I think that comes if you make really compelling, good documentaries. Like I've never thought of a story where just like, all right, guys, we're going to make a chart of around the country. What is the most view generating area? And that's where we're going to hit.
So the big question is, why did this video become such a big controversy? One reason may be that I'm the messenger, and that being a foreign YouTuber makes me an easy target.
Eu falo, ó, esse sujeito aqui tá autorizado, vocês vão dar uma volta na cidade e tal. O que você faz?
Eu iria obedecer. Manda quem pode, obedece quem tem juízo, irmão.
Quantas vezes aconteceu isso já, cara? Aconteceram várias e várias vezes. Tem vários vídeos. Rede Globo, Profissão Repórter, Record, Band, um monte, pô. Esses programas aí, Polícia 24 Horas, aquilo é autorizado, pô. Qual é a diferença? A diferença é que é um japonês americano, YouTube, rindo.
Look, this isn't some victimhood shit or anything of that sort. It's a conclusion that I can only come to if I start looking at it from the other side. Because when you show the clips from the video like they did on Instagram, I wouldn't blame anyone who would see that and think that I was making fun of a serious situation. And you don't even have to look at it from the other side. Look at ourselves, because I get it. We're all guilty of making snap judgments of facts based on a clip. And I also get it from my own perspective of someone who is also American and Japanese. I would also feel some type of way if someone came to my country and acted disrespectfully or seemingly so, and showing a side of the culture that I wouldn't be proud to show off. But I don't think the fact that I'm foreign is the biggest reason. The fact is, the media is fighting hard to stop the new competitor in town, and it's the independent creators and citizen journalism. And if this video is proof, they still do hold a lot of power to paint anyone in a bad way and use this weapon whenever they see a target. And while the largest newspaper in the country said a whole story on me, I had to face all kinds of attacks without being able to help the Brazilians that proudly show me their jobs as cops in such a challenging environment. And whether it be the US or Brazil, the fact is people are giving up on the mainstream media. And like we've seen through the story, they're grasping at straws to stay relevant instead of looking at themselves on what they could do better. The 2024 Paris Olympics just happened and concluded, and in Brazil, unlike here in the US, where only the big outlets can even afford to broadcast the games, in Brazil, a YouTube channel called Cazé TV was actually able to get the broadcasting rights. And it wasn't their first time. They broadcasted the 2022 World Cup on their channel with nearly 14 million subscribers, and they now just did the same for the Olympics. And unlike traditional media, they streamed the games through YouTube Live, and so people are able to comment on it live. And what's also different, as one of the commentators, Luis Felipe Feitas, put it, is that they vow not to shy away from controversial issues and that they will, quote unquote, not remain silent when important issues arise. And so with this more raw, relaxed, but professional style commentary, it was able to achieve significant success by reaching 500 million views in the first few days and up to 500,000 live viewers at a time. But not only were the fans happy, the athletes were too. Athletes were receiving massive shoutouts for their performance, which drove huge engagement to their Instagram follower accounts. And athletes will also go out of their ways to give interviews to Cazé TV over traditional media. And with 82% of the people who watched the Olympics with Cazé TV being under 44 years old, it's no doubt that one of traditional media's last straws of live sports is also slowly starting to get taken away. See, I do my research.
Do you ever feel burned out? Like, you're traveling a lot. Do you think this is sustainable?
Dude, I'm energized. I genuinely think, to anyone out there talking shit on Twitter, it's a motivating force, unfortunately, because it further confirms and validates the fact that there's almost things in the world that people are trying to hide. I think most people think they can silence a perspective on what's going on. The perspective is literally just going out there and capturing it. I'm hyped. I'm tired. This is a grind, but I'm energized by the fact that there's something at play here. If by virtue of merely acknowledging its existence, it can make a certain party so angry.
The reality is the mainstream media is losing credibility and trust every year unless things change. Because just as we've seen in this situation, when you prioritize manipulation, cancellation, and exaggeration rather than the presentation of truth, people have no incentive to give trust to a media that continues to do so. So you might ask, do I regret making this video? So let me make this abundantly clear so nothing gets misconstrued. No, The goal for the video was neither to expose nor glorify the cops, but rather to show the realities, and that I can confidently say that I follow through on that promise, not only for myself, but with those involved. But don't get it twisted, because I deeply regret how the media's outreach to this video led to those who were involved to be punished. Let me make it even clearer, because the last thing that I want from this video is to reignite more controversy. But as someone who deeply cares about exploring all sides of an issue, the last thing I could do is stay silent while the other side continue to spew more lies. But with that said, I will be doing things differently. Moving forward, I will be taking extra steps in situations like this to be even more careful, to make sure we have written approval to the highest level that is needed, and to triple check so that we can present the truth without worry and not compromise anyone's livelihood.
It's the whole age-old saying of Spider-Man, or in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I understand that any given video now, it'll touch a few million people. So we have to be very cognizant of everything. Right. The average person wakes up, goes to work, is tired after work, goes home and goes to sleep. Maybe they watch the news, maybe they don't. But these people don't have time to go out there and investigate and figure out what's going on, or even to have the conversations with a lot of these people. What I found is going up to them with the goofy mic and a camera sometimes gives you the pass to just talk to people about things that are otherwise socially incorrect.
I think if you want to be properly happy in life, you have to be happy doing the simple things. Otherwise, you're always going to be chasing this big high that when you actually get to it, isn't actually going to be that fulfilling, because you're going to build it up in your head. And like having the VIP room in the club isn't actually that fun. Social media might try and make you think that it's fun, but it's not even like when you go to a VIP room and you see a bunch of dudes standing around trying to look cool but having zero fun. It's like, and they spent thousands of dollars to do it. It just kind of makes
hand in their cup, not knowing what to do with their hands.
Look, it was some dark times, but I have no plans of stopping. And if anything, this experience focused me and my mission and my values even more. Because during this adversity, what I've learned is that how good is a mission or a values if there's nothing that I'm willing to sacrifice for it? Because in this mission to change how society approaches issues, it's gonna be a hard one. And that's exactly why I added a value for myself and my team that will always have fearless optimism, even in adversity. Because let's be clear, this isn't our first and it's not gonna be our last. And one last thing is that we've always been committed to honesty and truth, but one thing we've added is that we'll do so even despite the controversy. Because yeah, with that, I may lose out on sponsors here and there, but one thing I learned through this is that I'm always gonna bet my bottom dollar on authenticity. Because that's what it means to explore the unfamiliar.